Hey, welcome to the channel where we show you how to put some prep in your step. I know it's been a while since we've seen each other. I've been rethinking what the content on this channel is going to be. I'm hoping to start another series soon to really deep dive technically into what prep is doing and how to apply each of the steps. But coming back from Tableau conference, right now we're in the week after, and I was able to meet a lot of people and just a lot of ideas were flowing. Everybody was excited to talk to each other. And I was also really excited to see the big news that came for Tableau Prep. And so to me, that just sort of reinstilled the focus on Tableau Prep. And it made me want to kick things up again so that way I can continue to advocate for its use and continue to help others see how it can be applied and how it can really be most useful in combination with desktop. One of the amazing things in Tableau conferences is always Iron Viz. And CJ Mays did this wonderful violin plot. And when I saw it, I was like, obviously that's an amazing viz. And he just released a blog post, it was maybe yesterday or the day before, showing that he actually used Tableau Prep to prepare the data for that visualization. And for my Iron Viz submission, I did something similar where I prepared the data in a number of ways to do the pedal charts and my rain cloud plot, which is essentially half of a violin chart. And so this gave me an idea that there is an opportunity here to show what Tableau Prep can do and help others start to understand it and start to understand what's happening behind the scenes with some of their favorite visualizations. And so I talked to Kevin Flerlage, and he in turn talked to Ken Flerlage, and so I got their blessing to revisit some of their most popular templates and create prep templates to do all of that preparation work. And so I just posted a blog going through the steps of how to connect your data to and plug that into the workbook to get the visualization working. But I decided I also want to go through and show how I built that template. And then in turn, towards the end of the video, I'll also follow the steps of plugging it into the workbook. So that way you can see how it plays. And the intent is for it to be just as easy plug and play as the Flerlage Brothers templates are, but to just incorporate prep into it. So I'm not coming up with anything new here. I didn't invent anything. I'm just really adding on to the work that others have done. And I'm very grateful that the Flerlages have given me their blessing to do this. So let's jump right in. So we're going to start with the sigmoid bump chart. This was one of the first visualizations that I did that I considered out of the box, to where I really was first using the sigmoid function and first really starting to understand how Tableau works and how to create curves in Tableau. And so this I figured would be a great place to start. It's also a really popular one. And so we can kind of take a look to see how we need to create this template in prep, and then how you need to plug your data into it in the future to reuse it. So the original template is a Excel workbook for the data preparation side. And so the Excel workbook has 3 sheets. If we look at those 3 sheets, we've got an entry sheet, which has your dimension, time, rank. There is a measure field that you can input, and then an actual time field. And so this is the sheet where you typically go in here, delete these rows, and then insert your actual values. The data template sheet has some formulas in here that will populate as you enter values into the entry sheet. There's a dimension and time field here, a dimension and the next time field. You've got your rank, you've got your next rank. And so this is easy to achieve in Excel with the VLOOKUPs and different formulas. So you've got to do a little bit of tweaking in prep to get these values lined up. And so that's what we're going to do. And then there's also this join data sheet, which is essentially the number of points that you need to create that curve. And so for this particular viz, we only need 49 points. And so we're going to densify our data, essentially creating 49 rows for every one row in our actual data set. And so this is the interesting part of prep, is that you get to understand how these things are working and really understand data structure. So we're going to simplify this to where all we're going to need at the end of it is just the entry sheet, and this data template sheet and the join data sheet are going to be created from prep. So let's jump into prep here. So you can see I connected to that template, and we've got the 3 sheets. We've got data template, entry sheet, and join data. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the entry sheet. And I'm just going to assume that I'm working off of this sample data. The hope is that you will be able to plug in your values into the entry sheet and then plug that entry sheet into prep, and it will put your output in the format that you need it to create the viz. So the first thing I want to do is I want to recreate my join data sheet. And so the join data sheet, again, if I come and look at it, it is a table with 2 columns, path and join. The join is just a value of 1. So this is just a field that I need to join it back to my other table. And then the path is 1 through 49. So we can actually generate this inside of prep. And this is something that I like to do. I've done some videos on dynamic scaffolding. I just find it to be incredibly useful, because if we ever need to make any changes, we can actually do that inside of our prep flow. So let's create a field here, and we'll call this scaffold range. And so for this, I need 2 fields. I need my starting point and my end point. And so we know that is 1 and 49. So I'm going to create a field, and I'm going to call it path. So path start is 1. And we're going to do another one, path end, and that is 49. And so again, if I ever need to add more points, there's some vizzes that you need 99 points or 100 points, or if you're doing a circular viz, maybe 360. And so we can always just come in here and adjust this value rather than having to go and add those rows into an Excel sheet. And so that's all I need. I only need these 2 fields for my scaffold. I don't need any of these fields. So I'm going to control and click all of those, and I'm going to remove. Now, since when I created these calculations, it created a value for every row in my data set. And so now I've got these duplicate rows, and I don't want that. I just want 1 row. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to deduplicate these by using an aggregate step. So I'm going to add my aggregate step here, and I'm going to group by both fields. And so what that's going to do, since I'm not trying to do any aggregations, it's going to return me a row for each unique grouping of my values. Well, I've only got each row is exactly the same, and that's why it's going to return me 1 row. And so we'll call this deduplicate. Now, I also, just to note, typically add more descriptions in each of my steps. That's something that is, when you download the prep flow, all of those descriptions will be there and fully fleshed out. I'm just going to go through each of the steps and explain what's happening. So that is what's happening here. We're deduplicating and getting 1 row in return. Now, what I want to do is I want to have 1 row for every single value between my start and my end point. And so we're going to use the new rows step to do that. But first, since we're using integer values, it has to be in 1 column. And so to get these values in 1 column, we're going to pivot. So we're going to introduce a pivot step. We're going to use a wildcard search, and we're going to type in path. And so that creates me 2 fields, one named path with both of my values now in 1 column versus 2. And then it's got this pivot names field, but I no longer need this. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to remove it. And so now we've got my path field. And again, I named it path because I want to be able to easily plug it into my workbook. And in the workbook, path is the name of the field. And so let's call this pivot scaffold. All right, so now we've got our start and our end point, and they're in 1 column. So now I can add my new rows step. So we got new rows. I want values from 1 field, and for my path field. And it's automatically going to say, look at the minimum value and the maximum value, and then it's going to increase by increments of 1 for every value in between. And so now I've got this table, as you can see here in the before and after. I've got a table here that generated for everything between 1 and 49. If I go scroll down here, I should be able to find 49 somewhere in here. Okay, so let me make sure. There it is, right here. So now let's call this join data, because that is essentially what this step is now representing. This is now my join data sheet. And if I go in here and create a calculation for my join field with a value of 1, now, even if I switch that, so let's look at the structure of this, and let's look at the structure of our Excel sheet. And there you go. So we've recreated the join data sheet inside of Prep without actually having to have those values. We inputted the values we wanted here in this clean step. So we inputted a value of 1 and 49. We deduplicated our rows to get 1 row. We pivoted that 1 row into 1 column with 2 rows. And then we scaffolded and generated 1 row for every value in between that start point and that end point. Cool. So now what we need to do is we need to recreate the data template. And so in the data template, there's some formulas happening to where if you don't know what the rank of each of your values is, it will generate those ranks. And then it's also taking a look at what is the next ranking in this for this dimension. So what we're going to do first is we're going to create a clean step, and we're going to call it rank, because we want to be able to rank or create a rank if this field is not filled in. And so right now it's filled in, and I'll show you what that looks like if it's not filled in. And so let's just say, for example, I'm going to connect to this template, Microsoft Excel. And so I've got one here that has an entry sheet with no rank filled in. So let me remove this and add in this entry sheet. And so just for demonstrating, when I click in, you can see that this one has some measures filled in and no ranks. But the rank is important for that bump chart to work correctly. So let me add this to my flow. And so this is where the rank step comes in. And so for my rank step, what I'm going to do first, since this field is null, I need to change it to a number first. And then I'm going to create a measure, or a field, sorry, called measure-based rank. So we've got a measure-based rank field. And so for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to partition for every time. And the reason, so basically restarting for every value of time. So value of time 1, I want a rank of 1 through 4 for each of these rows for 1. But then when we get to time number 2 here, I want to restart. So that's why I'm going to partition by time. And then I'm going to order by my measure. And by default, order by goes in descending order. And so ordering by descending values of measure, I want to rank. And I'm going to use a rank dense just in case. But this is going to create a measure-based rank. So when I apply this and look at it, now I've got ranks of 1 through 4 for each segment of time for each of my dimensions. And it's based on the measure now. And again, we're creating this step so that way when you're filling in this template, sometimes your data set may have the ranks already in there, which is fine. But then if you don't have the ranks and you just have the measures, then this will create those rankings for you and still group them appropriately. So now that we've got this measure-based rank, what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the rank field. So I'm going to use say rank and just use if null. So if my rank field is null, I want to use the value from measure-based rank. If the rank field is not null, then it's just going to return me the rank value. So we'll save that. And then we're going to come in here, and since Prep processes things in order, I don't need the measure-based rank field anymore. So I'm going to remove that. And so now what you'll see, this field or this particular entry sheet had no rank values in it. But it was able to generate those ranks just like the Excel sheet does. So if I were to remove this one though, and go back to the original one, which has a rank but no measure values, and add this to my flow, it's still going to pull those rank values through from the Excel sheet because I used that if null statement. So now we've got our rank field. And so now the next thing is when we look at the Excel sheet, there is in the data template, there's two fields. There's one called dimension and time, and then there's one called dimension and next time. And so we're going to create those two values. So I'm going to go create a new clean step. We'll call this dimension and time. And so this one's going to be super simple. We'll call this dimension and time. And we'll say dimension plus string time. And boom. So there's our dimension and time field. And so now we want to do a dimension and next time. But to do that, first I need to create next time. So I'm going to create a calculated field, call that next time. And this is just going to be time plus 1. And so here we go. Here is our next time field. And so if time is 1, the next time is 2, so on and so forth. And so now we'll create another field, dimension and next time. And we'll say dimension plus string next time. All right, so now we've got dimension, dimension and time, dimension and next time. Well, when we look at our sheet, there's this field here called next rank. And so to do this in prep, I need to tell it which row contains the value for the next rank, and I need to line those up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate my field here. And so let me move this down a second. And so I'm going to create another clean step, which essentially creates a duplicate of my data. I'm going to call this duplicate. And I'm going to just come here to rank. I'm going to call this next rank. Okay. So we've got our next rank here. We've got next time here. I don't think I actually need actual time measure, dimension and next time dimension. So I can actually remove these. And then for my next step, let's see, I'm actually going to change the color of this to this teal color just so I can differentiate my steps here. And so let's see, I don't need next time for this. So for this step, I just need my dimension, my time, and my next rank. And so what I do when I join this back to itself, I'm going to join the time, so the time field from the original step to the next time, or sorry, I'm going to join the next time here. So for this case, 2, right? I'm going to join this back to the time field here. And so this is going to allow me to see what that next ranking is. So for example, if I'm looking at Kentucky and the next time is 2, then let me find Kentucky here when the time is 2, and I can see that rank is 4. So that's what this join is going to do. It's going to take this row here and line it up to this first row, and so that way I can pull forward what that next rank is. So let me do a join here. I'm going to drag this over, do a join. I'm going to do a left join because I still want to pull forward all my values. And so I'm going to take the next time from my primary table, join it to the time value from my secondary table. And then I'm going to add another clause and match up the dimensions to make sure that everything is lined up. And so now here in our preview, you can see things when let me pull in my rank and my next rank here. All right, so now we've got rank and we've got next rank. And so Kentucky, let's see, our current rank when the time is 1 is 1, and then the next rank says it's 4. If I look at Kentucky here when the time is 2, then the rank is 4. So that lines up exactly how I want it to. And I think there might be a couple of fields in here I don't need. Let me make sure. Yes, so I don't need this. Let me see. got my rank, I got my next rank. I've got my left join happening here. I don't believe I need my time, this time field that's coming. So since it's coming from the teal color, I don't need it anymore now that my join is done. And let's see, I believe that's all I need. So I've got 1, 2, 3, I've got 12 rows, got my actual time in there. This secondary dimension field also coming from my teal step, I no longer need. And so here we go. We've got dimension, dimension and time, dimension and next time, time, next time. I don't think I need next time anymore. Let me remove that field. Got time, rank, next rank, measure, actual time. When we look at our sheet, that's what we've got. Dimension, time, dimension and time, dimension and next time, rank, next rank, measure, actual time. And then there's that join field that we need to join it back to that scaffold with all of our 49 rows. And so in here, let's let me call this first. Let me call this next rank. And let me create a field just for transparency of what's happening. And I'll call this data template because that's essentially what this step is going to represent. This should mimic the data template sheet. I'm create a calculated field and call it join. Give it a value of 1. And now this sheet here looks exactly like our Excel sheet. And so again, this should generate, when you have your filled out entry sheet, it's going to generate the same way that the Excel sheet does. And so this is where you would typically now take the Excel sheet and plug it into Tableau Desktop, and then the join is being done in Desktop. But that's the point of the prep template, so we can see what is actually happening with this, and you can just take your output here and plug it into Desktop and it works the same way. So let me take the join data here and join that onto my template, and it's going to automatically detect that join is the field that I want. And then you can see exactly what's happening here. So my original data set has 12 rows and my join data sheet has 49 rows. And what the result is I get a table with 588 rows because each of the rows in data template is being duplicated 49 times to create enough points to create that curve in Tableau. And so let me call this densify, because that's what's happening here is my data densification. And then from here, I can output this. And if I take this output, and actually let me go back into my join step real quick, because now that these are joined together, I don't actually need these two join columns. Remove those. This here would be my cleaned up final data set that has all of the values I need to create that sigmoid. And then you can see here, all 49 rows being duplicated to create those points. So now I can output this, and I could say, let me just, I've got my slope chart template here, but let me name this one for YouTube, accept. And so actually I've got to do it here. Slope chart template, YT. All right, so if I run this, it's going to export as a file, a Tableau hyperfile. So let me run that. There we go, super fast and easy. And so now what I can do is I can open the Curvy bump chart template from the Flerlage brothers. And we're just going to plug this right in, and it's going to work exactly how we want it to. So again, the purpose of this is not to demonstrate anything new technique-wise. The primary technique for this template, for the calculations, that's all the Flerlage brothers. I'm just demonstrating how we bring Tableau Prep into that process, why it's useful, and how it helps us understand that behind the scenes data preparation. So if I go here to my Curvy bump chart sheet, this is the data that's being pulled in from the original Excel sheet. So if I were to add a new data source, go to more, and pull in that -YT file that I just ran from my prep flow, you can see we've got one sheet extract. and it's got all of my files. Now, if I compare that to the original template, let me load that real quick. In the original template, the join here is being done inside of prep. So you've got your data template and you've got your join data. And there's a couple of extra, you've got your two joins in here. And so again, it's doing the same thing. We're just doing that inside of prep to simplify the work on desktop's end and show basically how that template is generating these values and why it's able to give us each of those points. So now when I go to my Curvy bump sheet, I'm gonna right click and replace the data source. And typically you would expect things to break as soon as I click OK here, but when I click OK, you can see it actually transferred perfect. There's no difference. All of those calculations from the original data set got pulled over, and our sigmoid is functioning exactly how we expect. So this is hopefully the beginning of a new series. It's going to be a shortened series. Basically, the intent is to revisit some of these really popular templates for vizzes that require this data preparation, and to move that data preparation into prep and generate some Tableau Prep templates for y'all to create some of your favorite vizzes with. So there you have it. I'm going to post the links to the original blog from the Flerlage brothers, to the blog post that I created for the prep template, for the Google Drive that has the prep flow and the sample sheet or the Excel sheet, and you'll be able to download all of that and play around with it, and just let me know if you've got any questions. Again, thank you, Kevin and Ken, for allowing me to do this, and I hope this really helps advocate and increase awareness for prep and just usage for prep. So with that, I will see y'all in the next one.